Hello and welcome to another installment of our videos for Western Humanities. It's been a while. This one deals with the artwork of the Northern Renaissance, and so we're going to hop through some slides and take a look at what artists were up to in Northern Europe during the Renaissance. So keep in mind our time frame is the same as what we saw in Unit 5, happening at the same time, except not in Italy, but now Northern Europe. So we're going to especially see pieces from France, from the Flemish region, and from England, with a few perhaps sprinkled in here as well from other places. The big thing I want you to look for is how do these artists view compositional values? So remember before when we were talking Italian Renaissance, there was this upward trend towards three-dimensionality, perfection, idealism, but like realistic. Remember, we saw Michelangelo's David, like the perfect human being. We saw Da Vinci using mathematical proportions to capture actual space. So it was all about making these narratives real and dimensional. Um, but now we're going to see kind of some different stuff happening here in Northern Europe. So our first piece is Robert Campin's Maraude altarpiece. This is the Annunciation. So here we can see Mary with the angel Gabriel visiting. And off to the side, we can see Joseph over here, Mary's husband, father of Jesus, a human father of Jesus, constructing a mouse trap. So just a guy building stuff, but a metaphor that people at this time would have understood as, like it says up here, Christ used to catch the devil, bait to catch the devil. And so what you're going to see now is, like, as you can see here, this is a clearly French home. And this is in the Flemish region, which is just further to the west of France. And so it's sort of like a Dutch French mix. And so it's interesting because this is clearly Mary and Joseph taken out of the Middle East, where they actually lived, and transported to a French Flemish home. I mean, like, you can see it looks kind of wintry outside, and clearly this is a home made out of a wooden, maybe thatched roof, and like architecture that does not look very Middle Eastern to me. Think back to Unit 3, I think. This does not look like Middle Eastern architecture by any means, and these do not look like Middle Eastern people at all. And so you can see all of this messaging happening here, suggesting the belief that God is everywhere. God is omnipresent. He's here where the people, the audience for this piece, live. And so it's a powerful message that God is present. A little bit different than maybe what we saw in Unit 5, although you can maybe argue some of that stuff looked Italian too. But it seems in human nature we have this need to directly connect to things that we value, and so we will manipulate them to make them feel more like us, even if it's not factually true. Some other efforts you can see here, symbols meant to recall religious imagery. And that's a big Northern European trend as well at this time. Just to take a look at some techniques, composition-wise, area or linear perspective, not so great. You can see there's somewhat of an effort, and it's done pretty well over here with these lines, these orthogonals in the ceiling, but not nearly as organized as a Da Vinci piece. If you look at this table, Da Vinci would not be impressed there at all. So just a little piece to show where we are, but keep in mind, to be fair, this painting was made at the same time as Masaccio's tribute money. One of the first paintings we saw of Jesus at the lake or the river with Peter getting money out of the fish. And so 1427 is pretty early for those techniques of Da Vinci to be happening. Okay. Another one, we're just going to gloss over this one quickly. This is an elaborate polytip that is this piece that has a ton of panels. So we're not talking about a canvas anymore. It folds up and is used as an altar piece in a church. And so it's really elaborate with each frame containing a biblical message or story. And again, this idea of like God's presence near us in church, looking at images, connecting to, again, probably not a very Middle Eastern looking location. This one, I hope you could imagine, is totally pre Reformation. All of the ones we're seeing at first are pre Reformation. 1432, remember Luther was active like 1515, so we're still a long ways ahead of Luther's Reformation efforts. But this clearly is a Catholic piece pre-Reformation because it's so much focused on the storytelling and the glory of God through physical things, through material possessions. Ah, okay, that's Jan van Eyck. Jan van Eyck was one of the greatest painters of the Northern Renaissance, and you might have even seen some of his pieces because he's kind of famous for his bizarre style. This one, Man in a Turban, is an example of portraiture, which is also happening in Northern Europe. Just a good example of the unique style, especially that's just him. He's a Flemish painter, and he kind of characterizes Flemish style. So here you can see this is pretty nice in terms of capturing realism, especially if you look at the drapery on the turban, the nose. If you could get a closer look, you'd see his wrinkles better. You'd see a bunch of like stubbly hair. So a really good painter when it comes to attention to detail and close up. And especially what happens too, on a side note, in Northern Europe is this focus in how the physical aspect of people translates to psychological messages. And so we'll see more Northern painters start to explore the psychology behind the person being painted. Sort of like what we saw with Mona Lisa even. Another Jan van Eyck. This one, I always liked this one. This is a marriage of the Arnolfini family couple, Giovanni and his wife. Sorry, cold out today. This one is nice because it still brings in all of these religious images, again, to show presence of God, even when it's not a religious painting. And so all of these things, if you were well versed in religious symbolism, or like if you lived at this time, you might recognize some of these symbols too. Clogs off of a person's feet to indicate holy ground, you take your shoes off. A dog representing fidelity right in between the couple. Curtains are open, a broom suggesting like building a home and taking care of one's home as a gift from God. Oranges represented fertility, hand on a big belly, seeming to suggest family as well. And if you look at the faces too, wife's face downcast, looking towards husband, he's holding her hand. His face much more focused, looks like on spiritual things or like on thoughts, not so much on her, even the hand gesture like that. You can see here too this mirror. Some people say it represents like the all-seeing eye of God, that he's everywhere, omnipresent, omniscient, able to see all vantage points, and even scenes of Christ's passion around the mirror. So really this is loaded with imagery that God is present here and sanctifying this marriage even, and the child that will be born. Okay, I'm going to try to speed up just a little bit. This is Roger van der Weyden's deposition, really tightly packed in here. In terms of composition, Da Vinci would probably not appreciate the lack of organization, but It makes sense because in a moment of tragedy, there probably isn't a lot of organization in a seating arrangement. The focus rather is on the emotion, which will be another big development as we keep exploring art. I love this one. This is Last Supper, duh. Remember we saw Tintoretto with the Mannerist Last Supper. We saw Da Vinci with the Last Supper. Now check this one out. This is Derek Bout's The Elder, and it's his version of the Last Supper. It looks like it's very accurate, right? No, this looks like, for Pete's sakes, this looks like it is Northern European home. Look at the floor. It looks like a quilt at my grandma's house. Look at the snowy color coming in from the outside. Look how bright it is in here, but like that cold, pale bright that happens when you live in a northern climate. Look at how purely white all of these people are. Jesus at the center. And again, I don't know that this is meant to be insulting or, if we read it with a modern lens, you could be critical, but at this time, this is really just showing a tool, art as a tool to connect people to a spiritual story, that God is present right here. He's one of us. Jesus is one of us, and that is the message. But this painting takes it a step farther and says he's literally one of us. And so I think that's a powerful message. We could certainly look at composition too. This is much more natural with the fellows sitting around at a table, not all lined up perfectly like Da Vinci, uh, but less realistic in terms of, again, the table. Foreshortening is just a challenge, apparently. And I guess it's a challenge for me too if I'm an artist. So that is a nice look at, I think, a helpful painting to show sort of where the minds are at of these artists in the North. Oh, gosh, okay, come on. This one, love it. Hieronymus Bosch. He's probably my favorite painter of the Northern European Renaissance time. Just look at this one. This is Christ carrying a cross. Where even is he? It's hard to tell. Luckily, we have a little bit of linear perspective, drawing our eyes down with the cross. So here's Jesus carrying the cross. The cross draws your eye down, but then his face is just lost without that cross in the sea of these horrible looking people. Every one of them looks awful. I mean, take a really good look at some of these faces. And I love this one because I think Bosch is making a clear argument about human nature, especially the people who killed Jesus, which really, if you want to look at that argument, uh, it's everybody who killed Jesus through their own sins. That's what could be argued. And so we should be seeing ourselves in this, that would be what Bosch says, that human nature is ugly and we're a part of that. And he's got jabs at leaders and at people who are engaged in mischief and sorcery, common people who are just nasty, even some racial stereotyping. So pretty graphic stuff. The only lovely person besides the sadness on Jesus' face, besides Jesus, there's this gal over here who is Saint Veronica, and she's holding this cloth. I can't remember what shroud that has Jesus's imprint on it, and so she's the only source of beauty and good here, besides, of course, Jesus, who looks totally downtrodden and clearly suffering. This is him on his way to be crucified. So a great piece from Bosch to depict crucifixion in a totally different way. Grunwald, this one is great, and I'm going to try to hurry. I'm really sorry. If we were in class, we would take quite a while on these, but this one is really important because this, if you look at the date, 1515, the Reformation is happening now. People are challenging the church now, so we're kind of cruising. But here, Matthias Grunwald in his Eisenheim altarpiece really creates a powerful Catholic message. counter-Reformation message about Jesus and the church. And that is, if you could look closely, look at these hands, look at the muscle, the muscle here, especially like armpit region, the rib cage, his neck, the fingers over here. It's just crazy the level of grotesque uh, imagery he has in here. And that's powerful. This piece was created to go in a in a hospital, in a ward where people were really, really sick, basically on their deathbed. And so this was a powerful message that shows down here Jesus crucified, Jesus taken down from the cross, deposed from the cross, and over here rising again. So this is again an altarpiece that has these different components. And for people who are sick on their deathbeds, this is really powerful, to see God is among us, but it's more than that too. There's the afterlife that's reassuring. We can get through the suffering just like Jesus did, very clearly suffering here. We can get through it because there's something better on the other side. And so I really like this one as not only a representation of Catholic art, but also what the art was used for. And maybe, still, I don't know that Luther would approve of something like this, but I think the message, the intention is good in what the creator had with this piece. Okay, so that's what's going on with the Catholic Church. But then here's what's happening. This is what's happening more so now as the Reformation starts getting underway. Religious art just isn't a priority. Now art becomes focused on landscape. This is Albrecht Altdorfer's Danubian landscape, so German landscape, the beauty of God's creation. So, okay, God is still present, still here, but in a different way and art for a different purpose. This is not humanizing God like we see here. This is capturing the beauty of God's power and creation. So God's still present, but now with a different focus. So this one would definitely be considered Reformation art, and it's just clearly secular. This is just a landscape of beauty. So that's a big shift that we start to see happening, probably in part because of the Reformation. Okay, this is a self-portrait of this painter, just to show you the other development that's happening here as well. This one is special because Durer, like it says, the painter of this piece and this one, is a Lutheran contemporary of Grunewald. So he believed in what Luther argued and challenged this type of painting, Grunewald's paintings, with this natural or even portraiture type of painting. He liked the humanist style of the Italian Renaissance, but his message is different. So he uses their strategies, but the subject matter is the major change. For him, he sees the artist not as a humble reproducer of God's creation, but using the humanist concept of an artist as a genius, fulfilling their talents on canvas. So that's what he's up to here as well. So really, we can bring God's beauty into the world too, like Pico della Mirandola said, by using the talents he gave us. That would be something Dürer would like. Okay, some other things, another Dürer. This shows a new side of art. Art as exploration and study. And Dürer really enjoyed taking close-up looks at wildlife, plants to study. And that's sort of a Da Vinci thing too, a little bit different than what he was up to. This is leading us into the study of nature and what's around us. Again, if Lutheran, to get closer to God and understand God, and just to understand our world. He said, "There's beauty found in the humble and ugly." He wrote, "Depart not from nature according to your fancy, imagining to find aught better by yourself. For verily art is embedded in nature. He who can extract it has it." So all we need to do is look around us at this creation. That's where we can get inspiration. Durer also was into woodcuts. This one's maybe a little surprising for you, but if you look at the date, maybe it makes sense. 1497, pre-Reformation. Here he is creating a woodcut, which is made from wood blocks, carved like a relief, coated with ink, almost like a stamp. You make the stamp, early type of stamp. And here we have the four riders of the apocalypse. A vision of the struggle between good and evil that comes at the end times. And so, again, for Durer, maybe surprising, but this is pre-Reformation, before Luther made his points known. I would like to skip this one. Okay, just super quickly. This is Peter Bruegel the Elder. Nope, this one is right here. Holbein, that's what I want to do. Hans Holbein the Younger. This one is nice just because it shows a contrast between the intellectual realm and the spiritual realm. And just sort of this look at, again, the challenges that start happening because of Martin Luther. 1533, post-Reformation, or Reformation has definitely been underway for a while. And here you have this separation very clearly with death in the middle. A skull right here, if you can see it, separating these two realms, which Luther sort of advocated to get the church out of government. All right, good. Last two, Peter Bruegel the Elder, Peasant Dance. Super simple piece, mocking both the church and ordinary people as they're having a festival, but this is not exactly so much a religious festival as a secular party. So just a little mockery here of how holy days were being interpreted by average people. Which, if you think about today, even if you were to capture a picture of Christmas, most of the time it's not a very holy, sacred type of image that we would capture. It's kids opening presents. And so this is kind of early satire on religious festivals and holidays. And finally, I like this one here. Again, Peter Bruegel the Elder. Really nice look at landscape, and just get humans interacting with their world and living out their lives. I think that might be a good place to end. There's a whole bunch more here you can read over if you like, but that was a little tour of things that happened before the Reformation, for Catholics during the Reformation, and for reformers, Protestants in the Reformation as well, and after, and a look at secular art as well. So that's all we have. I hope that was useful for you, and I am sorry to be so long-winded. Hope you have a great day.